figure at any given time I've got 5 or 6 relationships that are absolutely driving me crazy, and probably another dozen that aren't quite what I'd like them to be. Even my marriage, which my wife and I would both say is a pretty good one, is always got the tension of unmet and mismatched expectations in it. Sometimes that's just fine and it doesn't bother me much at all. Other times it can make me feel like my whole world is falling apart. That's why I come out here and I watch the planes fly over. Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, made the observation that airplanes that millions of people trust their lives to every day and that almost always get right where they're supposed to go, nonetheless, are off course 90% of the time. You know, whether it's because they are skirting winds or other airplanes or storms, maybe they're just being blown around, it doesn't matter. 90% of the time they are not on a direct course for their destination, but they get there anyway. Then he said something else right there on the first page of the book that stopped me in my tracks, and I've never forgotten it. He said, good families, even great families, are off course 90% of the time. The key is they have a sense of destination, they know what the course looks like, and they keep coming back to it time and time again. That's how airplanes do it. They don't worry about being off course, they focus on getting on course. It can be hard to feel that you're off course 90% of the time and not feel like a total failure. That's why I let the airplanes remind me. Just because I'm off course doesn't mean I'm crashing. And it isn't always my fault that I'm off course or the other people in my life's fault either. It just happens. We get off course. The truth is that being together is one of the hardest things that we do in life. But we do it because the alternative of being alone is, well, so lonely. And because when we do get on course with each other, it's so amazing. You probably recognize a familiar rhythm. You meet this new person, they're just the coolest person in all the world. There's no way anything could be wrong with this relationship. But after a while, you get to know them a little bit better and you realize you have been overlooking some things, and that overlooking starts to turn into tolerance. But you can't tolerate things forever, and so then there's conflict. And if you stick it out through then, you realize that you resigned yourself to an imperfect situation. And then you start developing your own strategies. You don't depend on each other so much. You kind of find your own ways, your own interests. But then some crisis comes up and you bond again, and it's almost like the good old days, but it's not quite the good old days. And you start resenting each other and taking that frustration out on one another, and the whole rhythm starts again. These airplanes, they get where they're going because they've got a destination, and they keep adjusting their course over and over again to keep heading towards that destination. We can do that too. So sometimes I just imagine those airline pilots up in their cockpits, you know, I don't think they get all panicky and start yelling and screaming, oh no, this isn't the way to Toledo, we're on our way to Memphis, this is horrible, we're going the wrong way. No, you know, they just keep that nice, calm airline pilot voice, and they say, 27 degrees to the east ought to get us back on course, shouldn't it? And the navigator says, that's right, Captain, and they get back on course. So we mess up sometimes, and we aren't headed where we want to with our relationships at home or at work or wherever. And we can either get all consumed with where the trajectory of the moment has to be leading, or we can do something about it. We can focus on what we want those relationships to be like and get back on course. I try to stay away from these tracks. Trains, I suppose, are never off course. They are, by definition, once they start on track. The tracks make sure nothing outside the plan happens. There's no opportunity to deviate. Nothing ever goes wrong. The problem is, it also means there's no flexibility, no ability to deal with the unexpected or with change. It's an illusion to think that some people's relationships work this smoothly. They don't. If you think you know someone whose relationships are all perfect and who always gets it right, like this buddy of mine from college who has magically somehow managed to keep up with dozens and dozens of our old friends and has all these great people I keep hearing about from work and how they love each other, and this incredible wife and these kids who just adore him and all that sort of stuff, and it all feels like it's too good to be true. Well, it is too good to be true. What's probably going on is that you're seeing the ideal that they present to you, like they present to all the public for other people to see. But as for yourself, the real is like far too real for you to ignore. And of course, your real doesn't compare very well to their ideal. So don't feel badly if some things about your relationships with your marriage or with your kids or people at work don't seem as great as some other people's. That's just the way it is. Comparison will kill us. I mean, none of us gets it right all the time and doesn't have to do some sort of maneuvering to get back on course. The fact is, there are some things about your relationships that just aren't going to get fixed. And it's not your fault, it's not the other people's fault. It's just the fact that we're different from each other. And those differences bring tension, but they also give us the possibility of potential that is beyond what we could ever have on our own. I sometimes wonder what would happen if we kind of all just threw out the ideal and quit pretending that our relationships were better than they actually were, and we're just honest with the struggles that we're all having. Nah, it's not going to happen. But you know, sometimes I look at that perfect couple in the restaurant, or I think about my ideal neighbor, or I see those people at church that seem like they've got it all pulled together, and I just have to remind myself, and I think, you know, I know the truth about you. We all know the truth about ourselves, and it's just healthy when we know the truth about each other as well. Jesus spent a lot of time with people who are off course. He didn't lecture them about how far off course they were and how bad it was that they were that way. No, he sometimes spent some time letting them realize where they were going and where that was going to take them, but what he focused on was painting a picture of where they could be and how they could get there. Being off course isn't so bad. What is bad is thinking that you can't do anything about it. You don't have to be a perfect mom or dad. You don't have to be the perfect friend. You don't have to be a perfect spouse or partner or kid or boss or anything in order to be a good one. In fact, not even to be a great one.